One of my favorite things about the big days, Kentucky Oaks Day, Kentucky Derby Day, the Breeders' Cup days, is get the chance to reunite with a lot of my friends. It's kind of like a little mini reunion because I'll get the chance to have a lot of different guests come on and help preview different races. And someone that I don't talk to as often as I'd like. Every time I do, I'm like, man, it's been a while in between for Caleb because I always love having conversations and analyzing races with Caleb Knight from On the Wrong Lead. So Caleb's going to help us out with the Grade 2 American Turf. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Gino. Doing real well. Thanks for having me. I agree wholeheartedly. We don't talk as often as we should, and especially now that life just kind of gets busy sometimes. But I'm glad that you made some time for me for the Derby, and I'm happy to be on the show. And it's an exciting time of the year.
Yeah, and anyone who's out there listening, if you're getting ready to start your handicapping right now, remember you want to head on over to drf.com. They have your past performances available, Derby packages, all sorts of different tools, betting strategies, David Aragona and Marcus Hirsch. So whatever you need to help get prepared for the races, they're going to have you covered. And Caleb and I are going to try to lead you in the right direction with a really fun race to handicap. Caleb, how about this one? The American Turf that we're going to talk about, race number 9 on Saturday. I think there were 3 horses in the field of 14 that were under 10-1 on the morning line. What is this, Derby?
I know. When you told me the American Turf is what we'd be covering, I wasn't really sure. I didn't even look at the race at that stage. So I kind of took a better look at it. And I don't know if I should thank you or be upset with you for giving me what feels like the hardest race of the day.
I know. Just like you go through the field, everybody is basically 10 to 15-1. Like the entire field. They're all 10, 15-1 shots. It can't happen that way. Some of these horses are going to get forgotten about and float up a little. A few others will get bet. Just from a talking standpoint to start, a horse who will probably be the favorite is the 5 Legend of Time for Appleby, who comes in off of 3 consecutive wins. He beat a horse in Maidan named Musical Act, who came back over here, and it's kind of a decent running line because Musical Act was fit in the Transylvania, which we see a lot of these horses come out of. So you can at least get a little bit of a sense of that was a horse who came over here, and Legend of Time handled that horse easily. He does feel like he's a cut above that one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that's your most likely favorite. I think that we've all seen what what Charlie Appleby can do with the horses that he sends over to North America, especially in the past few years. So you have to respect this horse. I do think that Legend of Time is a little better than what we saw with Musical Act. I think you have a very valid point there. Stablemates finished 1-2 last out over in Dubai. But I have some questions about maybe the total quality of the field he's been beating over.
Who's even completely agree.
It's kind of the same horses. Shamrock Glitter, Althon, Musical Act showed up, and he did beat Musical Act pretty handily last time out. But it isn't like he came over here and was ultra impressive either. So he's one that in a field that, as you said, feels so open. He's one I'm probably okay with playing against a little bit.
Yeah, because the way the race shapes up, if everybody's going in different directions with horses, and this is one that a lot of people will settle on, I'm going to use him. He could really be overbet in here just for his chances of winning this race in a race that feels like it has so many other big prices that even if I'm wrong, I'd much rather take a swing on a lot of these 15-1 shots than this horse who I think is going to be like 5-2. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, completely agree. And from a win bet perspective, I think it maybe depends on how you want to approach that race. But I think this is a very obvious spread race in your horizontal bet.
Absolutely.
And I think he's going to be on a lot of horizontal tickets.
Yeah, completely agree. So let's find some of those pick 4, pick 5 horses for folks because this is a really important, it's a pivotal race. This is race 9, and this is the one that's going to lead us right into race number 12, which is the Kentucky Derby. So pick 4s, pick 5s. A lot of those multi-exotics are going to run right through this race. Who were some of the horses that were on your radar? We've talked about the 5, who's the horse to beat to start with. Now let's get, who more of the horses that we think we want to bet or throw in the mix.
Yeah, I think that when you tackle this race, I think you need to decide what you want to do with the horses that are exiting the Transylvania.
Yep.
Because that's a very common race for a lot of these horses. And there were a variety of trips in that race. And I think that 2 of the horses that I'm looking at in here are both horses that exited that race. And neither one of them are actually the winner. Neat. The horse that I actually probably like the best coming out of that race is the number 11, Cugino. This is a horse that has admittedly had a hard time finding the winner circle in his last couple of starts, but he's always right there. I mean, he just beat a neck, a nose, and a length in his last 3 starts. And he had some legitimate excuses. I mean, last time out, he was carried extremely wide into the first turn. And then I thought Castellano just moved a little bit too early, and he looked like he was a winner inside of the 16th pole, and then just barely got run down by Neat, who was able to save all the ground and tucked in behind the speed off a really cozy trip there. A really crafty ride by Relu, so all credit deserved there. But I thought Cugino probably ran the better race, just was a little bit unlucky there. And even though he's been beaten by Abrumar in his last 2 starts prior to that, I think both of those times he was kind of against the flow of the race.
He was.
Back in that Colonel Liam, I mean, the pace was extremely slow. I mean, 50 and 4 to the half at Gulfstream. I think you and I could do that in a horse suit. So he was again. That's a tough ask for a horse like this. And then prior to that, he once again just couldn't run down Abrumar in the lead. I think the pace should be honest in here. Castellano does have to work out a trip again from that outside post, but he's one that I'm pretty interested in.
So this horse is going to run well in here, and he's really, really honest. What's so funny about this horse, Caleb, is, as gamblers, we talk about our good and bad streaks, and I've been in this elongated streak, which it's what's frustrating about this one is that it's a streak where my handicapping is really good. And so I'm not losing money necessarily. It's not that because I'm still hitting horses to win here and there. It's just every sequence is 4 to 5, alive for a big one, miss the big one. Every time I'm set up for a big one, miss. Barry and I were set up for a big score on Tampa Bay Derby Day, the day that the tote broke. So that was a day that we were like going to be alive for way more than we ended up making. And then the tote ends up breaking down, right? So it's like you can't even make some of these stories up. People wouldn't believe you. But what's so funny is while I'm in the midst of this, like I needed Senor Buscador in the Pegasus Day, before he wins the big one the next time in the Saudi Cup, like I'm in one of those. Yes. But this is the horse that was when I kind of smiled and I said, now I know something's up, because 2 times in a row. And it's funny, if you look at the name of the horse, it's CU Gino. It's literally talking to me.
It's mocking you.
It's mocking me twice in a row when he's gotten beat right on the wire. Oh, that race at Gulfstream on March the 2nd, they were going so slow. He was wide and he still looked like he was going to win. And it was a sick beat. And then to make it even worse, in the Transylvania, I didn't have him bet to win. I actually bet Langos to win at 30 to 1. And I had late exotics with Cugino and Langos, just those 2 that I needed, either one of them to, and that was the only thing I missed that day. So his last 2 races, he just sniped. Shout out to Barry. He sniped me a couple times, and I laugh every time I see him, because I see Gino right away. It like jumps off the page to me, and he goes, "See you, Gino. See you." But I feel like, as gamblers, we feel, we think and we build these stories up. This guy owes me one somewhere, right? He owes me one somewhere. And on a day like Saturday, would it be amazing? Because the little concerns that we have with him, where he's been beat, the blinkers coming on could really just sharpen up that focus a little bit, right? And he doesn't need a lot of help, just slight little things that would have put him over the top in 2 different situations. I think he's going to run really, really well here. I agree with you. That's like a big part of how you handicap this race. What do you think of the Transylvania? And coming out of that race, he was the one I probably liked most. And I agree with you. I didn't like the winner, Neat, who I just sort of thought he got a really nice trip. It worked out well for him. I'm going to make him prove it.
Yeah, completely agree with your take there. He could win again. I've been against Neat a few times, and I continue to be wrong. But I think that his trip just worked out so well for him last time that I can't take him at anything near that 6 to 1 here, especially with others kind of having some rough trips in there. One other who I did want to highlight, maybe in a little less detail, is the 13 Can Group. Sure. And the post is rough in here, but he's another who had a pretty tough trip in that Transylvania. Yep. The pace of that race relatively held together. Laganos made a nice late run, but other than that, you didn't see a ton of big late moves.
Nope.
So I thought that Can Group did fairly well to make that run from 10th. He also lost a ton of grounds that first turn. And he ran very well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf like last year. And this is really his first start back on turf as a 3-year-old. That was off a bit of a layoff. He has every right to move forward off that. But again, you are going to be up against it with a pretty troublesome post draw, and he's going to have to pass most of the horses in this field if he's going to do it. So it is a big ask in here, but he's one that I do think has some upside.
Yep, he's in the mix for me. Completely agree. And he was really wide going into the turn. He had to angle out to the 6th path at the top of the lane. He closed pretty well, as you pointed out, in a race where there weren't a lot of horses closing. He was not far out of 4th. It's just one of those weird things where like you see a 4 up there instead of a 6, and it just feels different. You know, like you feel so much better about the horse finishing 4th versus 6th. And I'm doing a lot of work for DRF, like a lot of social media stuff. So I'll be sharing like articles, I'll read the articles and then I'll post them on Twitter and on Facebook a lot of times. So I'll read through basically like every article that comes through DRF before I share them out. And I remember Cassie was talking about how he couldn't believe this horse was like 10-1 on the morning line in that race. And the way he was talking, I made note of it because it was so like, wow, he is so confident in this horse. He's like, I thought we were going to be favored in this race. We're getting back to the grass. Like all of these positives, this horse is going to run well. And it's not that he just didn't really have a chance at all with the way the race shaped up. He ran about as well as he could under those circumstances. There's a good one in there for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cassie's not a guy that typically oversells. Like he typically is a little more transparent with what he thinks his chances are. He's
got horses all over the place at all different levels. And you're absolutely right. He's not de-Wayning it out here with us. He's not telling us that like the coach would be, bless him, but he loves, everyone. That's why I noticed it. And I made note of it. Like, wow, he really is high on this horse. And if he was high on him before the last race, that's just one of those you put a complete line right through. You can't hold it against him. And sure, he's going to be a big price, but hey, for a horse that's going to have to navigate a trip from way out wide, you're in good hands with Pratt. He's certainly someone who can figure that out if anyone could.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. I think he definitely has the talent in there somewhere. Might need things to break his way a little bit, but I think there's definitely a path to seeing this horse get the win here.
I guess from like a pace standpoint, there are a couple horses that are sort of intriguing because the 10, I don't really know what to do with. Like, I don't know how good he is or those races, and the fractions, they concern me because it seems like they're going so slow early in those races. But I'm at least expecting him to be a part of the pace. And when we're talking about other Cassie horses, I almost wonder if he's in here for sure to make sure that the pace is at least honest to help set up for some of those deeper closers, like the one we mentioned that he really likes out there. So his presence at least puts him in a group of, him and the 1 and the 2, as horses who probably the 4 Formidable Man, right? Who will be in that top group.
Yeah, I think so. This is the horse that I probably have the hardest time pinning what I want to do with in this field. Because he is undefeated, but I don't know really what was behind him in some of those races. He went off at 3-5 in that last race at Gulfstream in the Cutler Bay. The fractions at Gulfstream going 7.5 or something that always kind of baffle me because it always seems like it's slow, but oftentimes the races do tend to go to closers. It's a weird configuration. So it's just a horse that I struggle to get a handle on, but I'm leaning towards including him. But he is one that I could see taking a lot of money given the 2-for-2 record, and he has that early run style people tend to like, and you get Jose Ortiz. But he is one that I do like a little bit in here.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think to your earlier point, the pace is kind of murky. I would probably think that maybe Formidable Man gets the lead, which is kind of weird to say considering he's only made the lead once in his 5 starts. But to me, Saya's getting up is kind of my indication this horse is kind of going to be ridden with a little more aggressively than he has in the past. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of ways that the pace could go. I mean, Tricari, the 2-horse, maybe could go. So I could see
the 4 inside horses, right? Could all be in that top group if they wanted to get position. Like Lanios came from off of it last time out. He's been a lot more tactical in other races too, where he's been more forwardly placed. I don't know if he'd be on the lead, but I could definitely see him trying to save ground and not have to come from 6 lengths out of it like he did last time. So that is what's really challenging about the race too, is it's not a very, descript for sure pace shape that we can look at and just say, yep, this is exactly how it's going to shape up? It's a good question. Let's see what Timeform US says on how they kind of think it's going to play out here. So they have this as the fast pace. And some of the horses that they have towards the front, Langos, the 3, the 6 Neat, right behind them, the 4 Formidable Man. And then you have the 1, 9, and 11. So they actually don't have the 10s, more mid-pack in here. And a lot of times that is just because of the fractions, even, how like the races that they're coming out of. But interesting to see that they have it fast. They don't even have the 10 in. That is one of those ones where I think I would probably disagree with them a little more, because I do feel like that horse is probably going to have the intent to be close. I don't think that horse is going to want to come from way, way out of it. And he's probably like the 3rd or 4th horse in this race for me. So he's a pick 4 player just with his speed, the prospect of it. He gets way over bet and I'm starting a pick 4 here, then yeah, maybe I don't need to play him. But if he's 6 or above and maybe could be loose or sitting pretty close, I probably want him on my ticket.
Yeah, I see that pretty similar. And I do sort of, to your earlier point, think the Timeform pace projector here, I think there's some tactics that I think will be at play that just maybe isn't captured in the pace projector here. I would be a little surprised to see a horse like Laganos on the lead, even though he has shown speed in the past. I wonder if that was more a function of tactics. Both of his starts on turf have been off the pace runs, whereas a horse like Set has never had to pass more than 1 horse in 2 starts. Probably not the kind of field in a grade 2 on Derby Day that you want to try something dramatically different. So whether he gets the lead or is in that first flight, I'm not sure, but I think he's certainly going to be more forward than they're showing here in the pace projector.
One of the most challenging, most fun races to handicap all weekend long, honestly, that you'll find like all year, because you can go through every one of these horses. They're not far off of what it would take to win this race. That's what we look for as gamblers, is because we might be dead wrong, but this is the type of race, Caleb, where you can have a strong opinion about 5 different horses and just, hey, I like this horse. They had a bad trip. I'm going to go to bat with these 2. And if you're right, like that's what this is all about. We're looking for these big, big prices. I had such a blast with this one, and I'm glad we got to talk about it, because this is one of like those make it or break it races for a lot of people in the pick 4 and pick 5.
Yeah, it really is. And it's hard to do this, but if you can, these are the kind of races that I encourage everyone to try to have some type of a strong opinion. If you don't, then play it how you need to, or skip it if you have to. But
chuck the short prices, right?
Yeah, or throw out the short prices, right? If you think every horse looks the same, then don't take anybody at less than 4 to 1. So it's that kind of a race that I think you need to kind of draw your line in the stand and figure out what you can take and what you won't, and then try to go hammer it home in other legs horizontally.
Caleb, let's get your thoughts on the Oaks and the Derby real quick. We have the field of 14 fillies lining up. Nice group here with Tarifa as the 7-2 lukewarm favorite. As many as 5, honestly, could probably go off favorite if they got the money. Ways and Means has kind of been getting a lot of buzz too. She had that monster work in the morning, and her losses have been troubled trips. When she won her career debut, she kind of put herself on the map as the top in that division at the time, and she's lost twice, but she's had legit trouble in those races. Tarifa's really nice. Leslie's Rose ran a huge race last time out. Just FYI, is your Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies champ, and she came back with a really big effort in her first start of the year. And Torpedo Anna ran a monster race at Oaklawn Park. And then you got the horses who are just probably too high on the board, but they're super honest, like Power Squeeze and Where's My Ring, who just like sort of know where the wire is. Where's My Ring is getting better, was a maiden and put it all together in the Gazelle. Fascinating race here in the Oaks.
It really is. It's another just really good betting race. The Oaks, the Derby, the American Turf, they've all come up really deep this year.
And they don't always. They always don't
always. Yeah. So that's a really fascinating race. I think that to keep this kind of short and sweet, the Oaks horse that I think offers the best value anyway for me is actually Where's My Ring, number 3 horse. This is a horse that's had a little bit of time to put it all together, but I thought her run in the Gazelle was really impressive. To come in as a maiden and to dust a couple of the other horses that she's going to find again today, like Regulatory Risk, and then another one in was it Jinjin, I think it
Jin.
was. Yeah. So I think that was a nice race. If you look at her speed figures, she's right there with a lot of the main players.
So
I
take
think
her
that
last three.
she
If you
fits.
look at her last three speed figures and just compare them, and this is like a rudimentary way of thinking it, but if you're just like averaging the par of her last three, and the reason why I say three is because one, sometimes it can be an outlier, right? Certain tracks, speed figures. And why I like that is because it shows me that she didn't just get really big figures chasing Copian, who was a fast filly that she chased, or Kinza, excuse me, the really nice Baffert filly. So sometimes you can see that where there's a very nice horse, they win, and then all the horses behind them get way bigger figures than they've ever gotten any other time in their career. That's not the case with her. She's done it on different tracks. She went from Santa Anita to Aqueduct. She has a nice tactical style. I don't think distance will be a problem for her. And while she did take a while to put it all together, in a weird way, I almost like it because, she's got the most foundation in the field now. Her 8 starts, that's the most of any horse in the field, and she's proven in a mile and an eighth.
Yeah, I have a phrase I always say with these kind of horses, which is kind of like the light bulb horse, where they run well every time, but they don't just really win. And then once they do put it together, they a lot of the times they do tend to repeat, and they just go on to go win back to back or back to back to back. So I kind of wonder if we may see that with this filly.
Yep, they figure it out. Where's my ring? A nice price of 15-1 on the morning line. The Derby has the top tier Sierra Leone down inside. He'll be coming from way out of it. He's the second choice on the morning line. Fierceness towards the outside, be the opposite. He wants to be close or right on the lead. He's 5-2 on the morning line. I'm going to start with the two of them. Do you like or dislike either of the two? Or who do you think's the horse to beat? And then give us a couple that are on your K-Lob radar.
Yeah, sure. So I think the Derby is an extremely top-heavy race in the sense that I think after those top two, you can make a case for a lot of the others. But I do think if the top two show up with their A race, one of those two is your most likely winner. I think Sierra Leone is the horse most likely to run his race. If I'm playing a superfecta or whatever, he's going to be in it for sure. I'm not thinking this horse is going to miss the board. I have no reason to think that. He ran huge in the Bluegrass. That being said, I think Fierceness is probably more talented, but we just don't really know what version of Fierceness is going to show up. Whether it's a horse can't overcome adversity or whether he bounces after those big efforts, I'm not sure what it is, but he's had 2 awful races sandwiched around 2 or 3 really good races. We have yet to see this horse put together 2 big runs. So if I'm going to try to beat one of the shorter prices, I think he's maybe a little more vulnerable, while I acknowledge that he could also win by 4, and I would not be surprised. He's the horse that I maybe would key on top, but not use underneath, because to me, he's a win or doesn't show up kind of contender. I don't see it being highly likely that he runs a close second or third.
Doesn't he feel like one of those horses who you're going to know in the first quarter mile? Like really early on, the way he's sitting, the trip he's getting, like the way some of the other horses got out of the gate. If he's just sitting right there or he's on the front end, you get a feel like you'll know early, like he's running the Fierceness race. Or if not, I just don't really have any confidence at all in him if he were to get behind horses. Or if he were having to come from like past horses. That's just not something I think he can do in a race like this at this point yet. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's why I'm with you in that. Like Sierra Leone feels just so much safer that he's going to run that race, and maybe he hits some traffic and that's only good enough for second, third, or fourth. But Fierceness does feel like one of those that it was like, oh, yeah, he won by 5 and got a 115-20 buyer, or he just didn't really fire. There was other speed and he just sort of backed up and was like 5th or 6th. And,
Yeah. So that's exactly how I see those two, as far as they are the 2 likeliest winners, but I think there is some value to be found beyond those two. And one that I kind of hate even bringing this up because the horse has become such a wise guy magnet, it seems like, but the number 7, Honor Marie.
Yep.
If I had to say the one horse that I'm most interested in coming into this race, it's probably Honor Marie. I think that I really liked his effort in the Louisiana Derby. Couldn't beat Catching Freedom, but coming in on that form cycle here, paired up his 2-year-old top, I think he's sitting on a bigger forward move than almost any other horse in this race. Whether that forward move is going to be enough to beat the good version of Fierceness or Sierra Leone, I'm not sure, but I think he's very likely to run a good race. he loves Churchill, 2 wins and a second from 3 starts here. So he's one that I'm not worried about the distance at all. I think he's going to get his setup, and I think he's going to run big. It's just a matter of getting the right ride, and then also being able to work out through some traffic, because he is going to have quite a bit to do in the lane.
And if you're talking about a wise guy horse, he to me is one that he makes sense. Like, I understand why there's buzz for him, because he does look like a horse who is not going to be in the top tier of betting choices, and who you can just project all of that improvement for him. Everything from last year was good. He showed up this year. His first start, he finished 5th. He looked like a horse who needed the race. There were 3 horses in front of him that came back and won a prep in their next start. It was by far the strongest of the prep races. And then he took that big step forward that you were hoping for in his second start. And then he's been working really well and training really well in the mornings. And so, you put all those things together, and it makes sense why he's getting a little bit of buzz, why he's getting some love. And it's not, to me, like a horse who just is working really well. Right. And where those are the horses where I'm like, yeah, but the last couple of races haven't been very good. And now we're just getting it in the morning with this horse. This one has, I think, a lot of things really going well for him and pointing in a direction for him to just run a good race.
Yeah, there's always 1 or 2 horses that you hear about on the morning workouts that are training lights out. And yeah, I try not to pay too much attention to that, because if the workouts match my opinion anyway, then that's great. But this is not a horse that if I didn't like in the first place, I wouldn't probably be turned on by some of the morning bullet workouts or the workout reports. But the horse, I agree that I think I just really like him. And you're right, he's not going to be too short. He's not going to be 8-1 in this field. He will be in
12, 15,
12.
Yeah. Like if it's above 12 and he's like 5th and above choice, that's probably like, not one of your top 5 choices. And then in the next grouping of horses like that, there's going to be a lot, I think, that are from that range, right? Like 12 but below starting to, it looks like. So, and I'm also curious with the betting. It's been way different the last few years, even since Rich Strike, the way this Derby is bet. We don't see the massive long shots anymore the last few years. So does that, have a say in how the odds end up shaping up? Caleb, I know you are a busy man. You have a lot going on. And I really appreciate anytime we get the chance to talk, man. We had the Friday mornings going on a few years back where we were talking each and every time. And I always know that you spent the time doing the work. And I think we've said this like every time we talk, but we look for a lot of similar things. Like the way we handicap, I think the way we prepare, and even the way that we put like tickets together and wagers together. So even if we're not on the same horses, a lot of times we have the same idea of the groups of horses we're looking for, the price horses. So I always enjoy it talking with you, because I know if I miss something, you're going to point it out to me. And I appreciate all the work you put in, man.
Yeah, I enjoy it too. I just hope I don't inherit your luck lately.
Yeah, that's one thing. You know what? And you know what was a cool story? So I'm not sure if you saw this, but I'm doing some work with First Bet too and Express Bet. And so they sent me a message and said, hey, there's the big Gulfstream carryover. Can you promote this a little bit for us and, put a ticket in and, set it out on social media? And I was like, I have been going so bad that after last week, I actually had a big parlay, which I never even play basketball games. I had a big parlay closing to the Lakers when they were up by 20 the other night, and they blew that. And that was where it was like, okay, now I'm getting cross sport, and like, this is like really sickening. So I'm not going to look. I said I wasn't going to look at anything last weekend, play any races. I wanted to have a really clear head coming into the big week here. So then they sent me a message and asked me, oh, can you put in a ticket for the Gulfstream thing? And I was like, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, but I can help them promote it at least. So I asked Barry, hey, Barry, give me a ticket for $100 or under. I'll put it in 60-40. I'll bankroll it. If it hits, you get 60. You did all the work, and we'll split the thing. My energy is bad. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to feel it. He said, absolutely. He put it in, and it hit $96 for $2,500 on Saturday. So
I did not see that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so
maybe that's what you needed. Maybe the curse is broken.
So Barry got himself a free roll. I just sent him all that money, the 60%. I made myself like almost $1,000 for doing nothing, just for, hey, Barry, can you help me out here? He did the free roll. We both have a much better energy now going into the week. I got like some free wagers I can make. now coming in. So I feel way different than I did a few days ago. And sometimes it's something like that, right? That just got to change your energy a little bit. And now I have an extra few bucks when I'm putting these tickets together. I'm not going to be worried about throwing a horse out, like a price horse. And maybe it's one of these horses that I add in, Caleb, that will help. So, that's what's great about having buddies like this. Sometimes you got to lean on Barry to carry the dead weight. Barry, help me out, my friend. And
that's right. Got to keep the positive vibes going now.
Awesome. So Caleb, Ben, you and I would sit here and talk all day long about racing and sports. Thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck this week in all of your wagers, Derby, Oaks, and everything else. For all of you listening, don't forget, head to drf.com for your Kentucky Derby past performances. Those packages are available, and we hope that we led you to a few winners right here. Best of luck, everyone, on a big week in horse racing.